As part of our Mind-Body Connection series, we're going to look at a power column solution to a doubt problem in resolving fear by connecting to love. As I often say, fear is the emotional form of doubt, and what that means is that you will need to master it using different columns in ways that might not be the case with more intellectually driven questions or confusion. The antidote to fear is understanding when it comes to your emotional life or your doubt column, but the antidote to fear when it comes to the power column is feeling truly loved and valued. This is where the core narrative and a powerful sense of your belonging in the world can bring about a feeling of love with yourself, with others, and even with your symptoms, and it is this feeling of real love that can always eradicate fear. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we'll get back to you personally. And finally, you can reserve your place in one of my seminars or purchase any of my mind-body guides, also known as the PDFs, at www.crushingdoubt.org. In addition, my membership groups are now available. Please sign up on the website there as well. Now, without further ado, let's explore how fostering a real feeling of love in the power column can be used to eliminate fear. In our society, there really isn't enough talk about safety. We almost demean the word, as if to want it is some kind of sign of weakness. We even berate ourselves in many ways, sometimes subtly, in the back recesses of our minds, when we don't feel safe, as if it is our fault for not feeling safe. The word trauma, in fact, speaks to how much we do not like to recognize that we feel unsafe, as I find that people usually shy away from this word that connotes having been through something so awful that we never can feel the same level of safety again. But here is an important thought to try on. It is traumatic to be a human being. As they say, from the second we are born, we begin dying. Our lives will never be longer than they are at that moment. In addition, we have to grapple with something that other living creatures do not: consciousness. This means that we know that we are going to lose our mortal body and consciousness at some point, and that this will also happen to every single person we love. Now tell me, is that not traumatic? There are many ways we can help ourselves to feel safe, even in this context, including philosophy, religion, music, the arts, purpose, living well, joy, love, and more. But the question at hand isn't whether or not we actually are safe, but whether or not we feel safe. Society places certain values on certain things, and for decades now, or longer, the value has been on things like self-reliance, humility, toughness, stoicism, and being without complaint. These can all be wonderful qualities, but like any quality, if it is clung to too tightly, it prevents flexibility. It even takes away a reasonable view of the opposite qualities, the ability to be vulnerable, comfortable and deserved pride, being able to sit with fear, anger, or sadness, expressiveness and openness, and speaking up for yourself when you are hurting or being hurt. It is within the opposite qualities that we find a very important concept which not only hasn't been so popular in recent years, but can sometimes be the subject of ridicule and disdain: safety. Before this gets confusing, I am not advocating for the concept that everyone is fragile or in need of such protection that we should tiptoe around anyone. What I am advocating for is to acknowledge a problem that everyone can have at times, without needing to rush to solutions or rules to live by because of this fact. Each and every person has vulnerabilities, and these vulnerabilities are not small ones at that. Each of us carries within us fears of various kinds, and it is my belief that few people live without much fear. Instead, I conceptualize it that some are very invested in not knowing their own fear, let alone showing it to others. I would like to strike the right balance between recognizing that every person wants to have as much safety and security as they can find, while also fostering the capacity for a sense of inner strength and capability to stand independently and confidently in the world. So with that preamble out of the way, we can now turn to what safety really means. To be safe in the psychological sense, since the physical sense of safety is quite obvious, is to feel that there is no major danger in our present or imminent experience, allowing us to relax and not have our fight or flight system activated. It is also an important part of safety to feel that there is nothing lurking in the background that could suddenly become a present threat to our well-being at any moment. Trauma is this latter experience, something from the past that, if activated, can become a danger instantaneously and catastrophically. In fact, suicidal ideation and the actual risk of completing suicide goes way up when trauma is activated, so it is a very big danger indeed. Safety could be defined as a feeling that who you are, what you need, and your sense of peace in the world are not being, about to be, or likely to be threatened in any way. Safety, as I see it, is experienced most completely when we are at peace with ourselves and lucky enough to not have the world throwing something very difficult our way. But what is difficult for one person versus another is very subjective. Nonetheless, what I have found is that when people are being honest with themselves, it is very easy to identify what makes us feel unsafe. If society valued safety and did not criticize the wish for it so much, we would have a much easier time admitting what makes us feel safe and what makes us feel unsafe. The good news is, you do not have to wait for society to endorse the importance of safety, and you do not need society to endorse what makes you feel safe or not. In the power column, you get to decide what feels safe and what does not. In the power of aloneness, you can recognize that no one else is on your journey with you, and no one else would have any way of understanding what is safe for you and what is not. Your experiences will determine what feels safe and what does not. The ways you were made to feel unsafe in the past will loom large, understandably. The meaning that things have for you will determine safety. So, we each have our own definition of safety, and if we can get past any ridiculous stigma against valuing emotional safety as a top priority, we can begin to align with our wish for it and even strive to give it to ourselves as often as possible. In a sense, this is what the core narrative is. It is the story of how we came to feel unsafe, what it did to us, and an outline of what we need to learn to live with much greater safety. This is incredibly important because fear seems to be taking up more and more space in our lives. And despite some fears being based in reality, even the ones that seem to others to not be, are definitely based in reality within our individual high-stakes situations. I've talked about the antidote to fear being information, because it gives us control and a way to counter fears effectively. But there is another antidote to fear that can work wonders: love. What I mean by this is, and why I am talking about it on the heels of safety, is that love is safety. Feeling loved and valued means that even if bad things happen, nothing is going to take away our value. If we are loved, nothing that happens can take that away from us, which means that some measure of peace is always there. This is why, even through death and trauma and tragedy, we can still feel safe in many ways. If there is something that can never be taken from us, no matter what happens, we are safe. The reason I'm telling you this is that building a sense of love within yourself is a big key to mastering each column. In the emotions column, we are giving ourselves permission to recognize when safety has been threatened. By recognizing this reality, we can have the physical expression of the feeling reduced and get relief just by the awareness of a disturbance in our sense of peace and safety. When seeing our central themes, particularly if we can make it a judgment-free zone, as I like to say, we are giving ourselves real love. And this is part of the antidote to fear. In the doubt column, where fear is referenced and understood directly as a part of the equation, we are well aware of feeling unsafe in any variety of ways. By things not making sense, by feeling that no one has any answers or ability to protect us from suffering, by not being able to be at rest with a problem, and thus needing to expend great energy working on it, or by feeling that our actual safety is being threatened in some way. Fear is, in a sense, a disconnect from feelings of love. This is where we feel that love is impotent, because we do not feel protected by anything when fear comes in. What we need to remember is the love that is there, or find a way to find some presently, whether with others or with ourselves. I find that when I remember love, such as how my girls see me, or how I feel about them, I am less vulnerable to anything else. Sometimes I confront fears with science and logic. At other times, when that isn't working as well, I remember love and fear shrinks some, or sometimes fully. In the power column, we learn to love ourselves. Yes, Whitney Houston was right. It is the greatest love of all. But it's not just that we learn to love ourselves. We do so by accepting the fullness of our trauma, which means that we let in the reality of the lack of safety we did have, and we provide ourselves with love now, so that we do not feel the lack of safety anymore. By using the body's unwavering empathy towards ourselves, we can learn to have this same feeling about our psyches in our conscious experience. And by doing that, we are learning to use love to annihilate fear. I really hope you enjoyed this episode on how love conquers fear. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we'll get back to you personally.